Hi guys, hello, welcome to my channel. Summer is quickly approaching, so it is time to talk summer book releases. Specifically, we're going to be talking about books releasing in June, July, and August. Without further ado, let's jump straight in because we have a lot of books to talk about. And our first month, of course, is going to be June, and I do have at least a few books in June that are like some of my most highly anticipated, so I'm so excited. Our very first release day within June is June 3rd. And we've got a few books releasing. The very first one is Heir of Storms by Lauren Hamilton Murray. And this is going to be the first book in a YA romantasy trilogy. The description of this book does say it's Red Queen meets Shadow and Bone, neither of which I've read. And honestly, Shadow and Bone I don't think I'm ever going to read, but Red Queen is definitely at the top of my list for books I want to read. But as far as this one goes, this one says it's forbidden love, dangerous magic, and a cutthroat competition for the throne in an empire where crowns are not inherited, they're won. I say this literally every time, specifically in these videos, but like competitions, especially in fantasy novels, are always my favorite thing ever. And honestly, I think that's all I'm gonna say on that one because I kind of want to go in more blind. The next one that we have is That Devil Ambition by Lindsay Miller. And the cover of this one is definitely what kind of like grabbed my attention. This one definitely looks like kind of like magical school type setting. This one says it's the perfect fans for A Study in Drowning, which I have not read, but I've heard so many good things about. And then Gallant by V.E. Schwab, which won a like Goodreads award a couple of years ago. So obviously a lot of people liked that one as well. And then All of Us Villains, which I have read and I haven't really heard too many people talk about, but I personally really loved it. It had a really cool magic system. So if this is compared to that in any sort of way, I'm very intrigued. It says it's a thrilling standalone fantasy, which also is a bonus because I feel like a lot of times, as much as I love a series, it can definitely get a little overwhelming when you're in the middle of a ton of them. So I like the occasional standalone. So this is a standalone fantasy about the lengths we'll go to get ahead, an incredible, fresh, twisty love letter to dark academia with a body count. First in his class and last in his noble line, Fabian's only hope of a good future is passing his elite school's honor class. It's only offered to the best 13 students, and those students have a single assignment: kill their professor. That's right. I remember reading this synopsis and being like, I definitely need to read this. Also too, by the way, I do leave a list in every single one of these videos of all of the books that I talk about in the description. So if there's ever a book that you want to like learn more about, definitely check out that list. Our third book for June 3rd is Battle of the Bookstores by Allie Brady. You can probably tell from the cover of this one. This one is kind of like a fluffier romance, which honestly, I haven't read a whole lot of recently, so I'm excited to kind of find one that I'm excited for. This one says, rivalry and romance spark when two bookstore managers who are opposite in every way find themselves competing for the same promotion. Despite managing bookstores on the same Boston street, Josie and Ryan have never interacted much. Josie's store focuses on serious literature and Ryan's sells romance only. But when the new owner of both stores decides to combine them, the two are thrust into direct competition. Only one manager will be left standing, decided by who turns the most profit over the summer. I mean, just from those two genres, I'm voting for a romance, but who knows? So yeah, that sounds really cute. I think that'll be fun. Although I'm wondering how that's going to end because only one of them is going to get the promotion, and I feel like that might be a little bit of like a sore subject, you know what I mean? Next up we have Kill Creatures, and this one definitely drew me in from the cover and also the title. Like, I love that title, and if I remember correctly, I do feel like this is a little bit outside of my comfort zone, but I'm willing to risk it for the biscuit. This one says, last year Nan's three best friends ventured into the canyons near their small town and never returned. Now one of them is back and Nan can't believe it, ... because she's the one who killed them. And basically the synopsis kind of explains a little bit deeper that it's been a year since this friend killed her friends, and the friend that like returns basically walks out of the water. So I feel like this is either gonna have like paranormal type of elements to it, or it's gonna be kind of one of those things aren't what they seem, potentially with like some little elements of like that fever dream type of writing style, which is not my favorite at all. I actively avoid books that are described as that. So I don't really know what to expect from this, but I'm, again, really intrigued. And then the very last one that we have for June 3rd is A First Time for Everything, and this is by K.L. Walther. This is from the author that wrote Summer of Broken Rules. I feel like people either really loved that book or really hated it. And for me personally, I absolutely ate it up. I thought it was so cute. It's very much a fluffy romance, and it definitely does have elements of kind of like an insta-love type of vibe. And I do feel like the main critique that I heard from it was that it was insta-lovey. Like, a lot of people did not like that. However, this book also had an element of like a game involved, and I thought that was so creative and so fun. That being said, I have not read a single thing else from this author, and why not this one, you know? I honestly don't even think I read the synopsis for this one. I just saw it and was like, it's time. So let's find out what this one is about together. This one says, a fun new coming of age romance full of dating disasters, powerful firsts, and the importance of family. Madeline has always been extremely close to her family, so she is shocked when her older brother gets engaged without including them. Mads has never been the biggest fan of his fiancée Katie, so in order to remain one happy family, she is determined to bond with Katie before the big day, which includes reluctantly agreeing to be a bridesmaid. During a late night bridesmaid only game of Truth or Dare, Mads is cornered into revealing she has never been kissed or even been on a date, which spurs on the other girls to unite on a quest to find Mads the perfect +1 for the wedding. Next thing she knows, she's navigating a series of disastrous dates that include some major misunderstandings and mishaps. This is turning out to be something completely different than what I thought it was originally going to be. It says, all of a sudden Mads finds her heart tugged in different directions, to Connor, the boy next door who knows her best, to Margot, the former classmate who knows how to push all her buttons, and to some of the new suitors who surprisingly aren't all bad. As the wedding draws near, Mads has to figure out who she wants most as a dance partner, while also making sure her brother isn't making the biggest mistake of his life. I don't know, I think that sounds really cute. I love like a dating kind of book, and I do feel like a lot of times with books where people are like dating different people, I feel like it really skims over that type of thing, and that's like the stuff I want to read about, you know? So I'm excited for this. I'm hopeful. I think it'll be good. Okay, I keep accidentally exiting out of my list and it's driving me insane because I have to keep going into it and then scrolling back down to where I need it to be. Moving on to our next release day for June, we have the 10th. And we're starting out strong with a Riley Sager release. This is With a Vengeance. And I'm gonna be honest, the plot of this one isn't the most intriguing to me in the world, but it does have one of my favorite type of like murder mystery tropes. I don't know if it's actually a trope, but basically when everyone is kind of like stuck in one place, someone gets murdered, so they have to like figure out which one of those people did it. I absolutely love that. And the fact that this is from Riley Sager, who I historically have really liked. I've only read a few of his books so far, but like every single one of them have been good. This one says, in 1942, 6 people destroyed Anne Matheson's family. 12 years later, she's ready for retribution. Basically, she tricks these 6 people into getting on a train to investigate what happened to her family and figure out who did it and basically have them arrested when the train gets to its destination. But someone ends up getting murdered on the trip, so now they have like a whole nother problem to solve. Next up, we have another heavy hitter as far as like authors. We have a new book by V.E. Schwab. This is Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil. Scanning over the synopsis is definitely giving me a little bit of like an Invisible Life of Addie LaRue kind of vibe because there is different timelines, but there's also like different kinds of descriptors for each timeline, which I'm very intrigued by. So this one says, this is a story about hunger, and then the timeline is 1532, Santo Domingo de la Calzada. I feel like I butchered that. A young girl grows up wild and wily. Her beauty is only outmatched by her dreams of escape. But Maria knows she can only ever be a prize or a pawn in the games played by men. When an alluring stranger offers an alternative path, Maria makes a desperate choice. She vows to have no regrets. And then the next timeline is, this is a story about love, and it's 1827, London. A young woman lives an idyllic but cloistered life on her family's estate until a moment of forbidden intimacy sees her shipped off to London. Charlotte's tender heart and seemingly impossible wishes are swept away by an invitation from a beautiful widow, but the price of freedom is higher than she could have imagined. That one so far is a little bit more intriguing than the last one. And then lastly, we have, this is a story about rage, 2019, Boston. College was supposed to be her chance to be someone new. That's why Alice moved halfway across the world, leaving her old life behind. But after an out-of-character one-night stand leaves her questioning her past, her present, and her future, Alice throws herself into the hunt for answers and revenge. I read a book that had kind of a similar vibe to this. It was, I can't remember the exact title, but it was something like Wayward. I'll put it on the screen. This book had a similar premise of like having different timelines, but it was all within like the same family, like different generations. And that was super, super fun and interesting to read. So this one I think will be a really good one. And then the last book that we have for our June 10th releases is Caught Up by Nevessa Allen. And you guys, I have been highly, highly anticipating this book since I read Lights Out. Completely obsessed with Lights Out. Lights Out was a stalker romance, and historically, before I read that book, I had not liked any stalker romance that I had read. Completely obsessed. I loved every second of that book, and I have been waiting very impatiently for Caught Up to come out, and I'm very excited it's finally happening. This one is basically about 2 people that knew each other in childhood, but the male character was kind of like a bad boy, and the female character was very much like a do-gooder. She did really well in school, so he never wanted to like mess with her in that kind of way, even though he always kind of like had a crush on her. But now that they're adults, he ended up like stumbling across her social media, and it's like full of more provocative pictures and things like that, and he finds out that she works at a local play club. And from like the vibe of the synopsis, I do think there is a little bit of an element of like a stalker kind of situation again, which I'm excited for because of the last one. And then from Lauren's perspective, the good girl, it says, Lauren is intrigued by the mystery man who keeps showing up at her club, who tempts her white-hot desires, but as their flirty online messages stir up a deeper form of connection, Lauren worries she's developing real feelings for this brooding stranger. So apparently they also talk online. I don't know, I think this is gonna be really fun. I'm very, very excited for it. Moving on to our next release day for June, we have the 17th, and the very first one that we have is another highly anticipated book release for me for like the entire year. This is Sounds Like Love by Ashley Poston. If you've never read a book by her, she basically does really cute, kind of sentimental, magical realism type romances, and before reading any of her novels, I never really enjoyed magical realism, but I love the touches that she puts in her books. And really briefly, this one is basically about a songwriter and a like bitter musician who have a telepathic connection that neither of them want. Outside of like a fated mates kind of situation, I've never read a romance with like a telepathic connection, so I'm very, very intrigued by that. And then our last release that we have for the 17th is If We Survive This. This one's basically about surviving a zombie apocalypse, and I've never read anything like that. I've watched plenty of movies and shows and things with that kind of a theme, and I've absolutely loved them. Specifically, this one is about Flora, who is a girl who like never thought she would survive something like a zombie apocalypse, but this book takes place like 6 months into the apocalypse, and her brother are the only ones that are like still alive. This is a book about a teen girl leading a group of survivors on a perilous journey during the apocalypse. I think reading about the apocalypse could be really fun. So there's that one. And then now, last but not least, for our June releases, we have the 24th, and we only have one book in the 24th, A Treachery of Swans. I feel like I don't even need to say it at this point, but like, the cover of this book. And again, I do feel like this one is another one that's kind of going to be outside of my comfort zone as far as like writing style, but we're going to give it a shot. Yeah, this one is described as an atmospheric fantasy. Atmospheric specifically is a buzzword that kind of scares me because I feel like that's going to be more vibes versus story. I prefer a story-based book versus just a vibe / character-driven book. It says it's based on Swan Lake, following Odile as her plan to restore magic to her kingdom gets disrupted by a murder, forcing her to beg for help from the young woman whose identity she stole. Can two girls, one enchanted and one the enchantress, save their kingdom and each other? 200 years ago, a slighted deity stole the magic from Uriel and vanished without a trace, but 17-year-old Odile has a plan. All her life, her father, a vengeful sorcerer, has raised her for one singular task: infiltrate the royal palace and steal the king's crown, an artifact with enough power to restore magic. But to enter the palace, she must assume the identity of a noblewoman. She chooses Marie Deodat, famed for her beauty, a rumored candidate for future queen, and Odile's childhood friend turns sworn enemy. I mean, that sounds really good, to be honest. So those are all of June's books. Now let's go ahead and head into July. And similarly to June, we have a couple of like really highly anticipated books in July as well. Our very first release day for July is got the bulk of July's releases, and the very first one is one that I am probably the most excited for this entire list. Like, this is the one that I am guaranteed the day it comes out to be reading, and that is Rescued by the Alien Bull Rider by Ursa Dax. This is the 6th book in the Cowboy Colony Mail Order Brides series. I have been talking about this series nonstop recently, so if you've seen any video from me probably within the last like 2 months, you know all about this series. I literally cannot shut up about it. This is basically about a colony of alien cowboys that have basically been kind of like exiled onto the specific planet because as children they were deemed felons, and now that they're all adults, they're getting the opportunity to have human wives. And basically each book kind of focuses on a specific alien and their specific human bride, and they are just the cutest freaking books on the planet. This one specifically is about kind of like the grumpier alien of the group because each of them do have like their very individual types of personalities. And this one, from like the start of the whole mail order bride situation, did not agree with it. Like, he did not want a human bride, but we got like a little glimpse of him from another book, and kind of like now that he's seeing the other aliens get brides, he's kind of like regretting his decision, and clearly now he's gonna get a bride for himself, and I'm so freaking excited. Our next release is The Enchanted Greenhouse by Sarah Beth Durst. This one says it's a cozy fantasy nestled on a faraway island brimming with singing flowers, honey cakes, and honeyed love. The singing flowers and honey cakes is very much giving me like Alice in Wonderland, which was pretty much my favorite movie as a kid. Turlu, I feel like I'm saying that wrong, broke the law because she was lonely. She cast a spell and created a magical sentient spider plant. As punishment, she was turned into a wooden statue and tucked away into an alcove in the north reading room of the Great Library of Elysium. I feel like that's a really heavy punishment. Like, you create a sentient plant and then you get turned into a statue for the rest of your life. This should have been the end of her story. Yet one day, Turlu wakes in the cold of winter on a nearly deserted island full of hundreds of magical greenhouses. She's starving and freezing, and the only other human on the island is a grumpy gardener. To her surprise, he offers her a place to sleep, clean clothes, and freshly baked honey cakes, at least until she's ready to sail home. But Turlu doesn't want to return home, and as she grows closer with the unwittingly charming gardener, she learns that the magic that sustains the greenhouses is failing, causing the death of everything within them. Turlu knows she must help, even if it means breaking the law again. This time, though, she isn't alone. Assisted by Yarrow, a sentient rose, Turlu must unravel the secrets of a long-dead sorcerer if she wants to save the island and have a fresh chance at happiness and love. This sounds so good. The next release on our list is Of Flame and Fury, and I love the cover of this book. I feel like the pattern and like the colors give very 80s vibes, which does not at all fit the actual description of the book. This one says Fourth Wing meets Iron Widow in this enemies to lovers romantic fantasy. So I've never read Iron Widow, but I've read Fourth Wing. Absolutely loved it, so very intrigued. On an island built from ash and shrouded in fire, Phoenix racing is a sport just as profitable as it is deadly. Kel Vera and her team of underdogs, the Crimson Howlers, are desperate to win the annual races and the fortune that comes with it, but the Howlers need a new rider, which leads Kel to join forces with Warren Coop, an arrogant rival she can't get out of her head. As tensions rise on and off the track, Kel accepts a job from a mysterious tech mogul who shows an unsettling interest in her Phoenix. This thrusts Kel into a conspiracy that endangers everyone she cares about, especially Coop. And that's pretty much all it says. We've got Phoenix racing, and then I guess it's gonna be like modern day, because the fact that there's like a tech mogul, I don't know how I feel about that right now. Either way though, I'm intrigued enough to give it a shot. So there's that one. And then the last release that we have for July 15th is Made for Each Other by Lynn Painter. And this is another like highly anticipated for just the entire year. Lynn Painter is my favorite like fluffy romance writer. I absolutely eat up every single book she writes. This one says a millionaire and a house cleaner are a match made in heaven in this sparkling new romantic comedy. And I was initially going to tell you more, but I think I'm actually gonna leave it at that. Now moving on to our second release day for July, we have the 29th, and there's only 2 books, which are the last 2 books for July just in general. And the first one that we have is Silver Cloak, and this one honestly does not look familiar to me at all, so let's see what it's about. This one says it's an addictive new fantasy series where magic is fueled by pleasure and pain, and an obsessive detective must infiltrate a brutal gang of dark mages, knowing that one wrong move will get her killed. 2 decades ago, the Blood Moons ruthlessly murdered Saffron Killeran's parents. Hellbent on revenge, she lies her way into Silver Cloak Academy, the training ground for her city's elite order of detectives, with a single goal, to bring the Blood Moons to justice. But when Saf's deception is exposed, rather than being cast out, she's given a rare opportunity to go undercover and tear the Blood Moons down from the inside. Descending into a world where pleasure and pain are the most powerful currencies, Saf must commit some truly heinous deeds to keep her cover and her life. Not only are there rival gangs and sinister smuggling rings to contend with, but there's also her growing feelings for the Kingpin's tortured son, with his vicious pet Fallow Wolf, his dark past, and the curious prophecy foretelling his death at Saffron's hands. This one definitely sounds like it could be potentially a little bit outside of my comfort zone, but also very much in it, if that makes any sense whatsoever. We'll see how it goes. Last but not least, for July, we have Dead Girls Don't Talk. The title of that is definitely what initially drew me to this book. This one says, 2 girls, 1 dead, 1 disappeared. Whose side of the story will you read first? This is exactly why I wanted to read this one. I don't actually want to read the synopsis for this one, but just know it's kind of like a choose your own adventure thriller, which I've never read a book like that. In this enthralling dual narrative, there are 2 sides to the story. Which girl's version to read first is up to you. Whatever the choice, the truth will reveal itself in the end. I don't even know how that's gonna work, but I'm so intrigued. So this is for sure gonna be something that I get my hands on, because how could you not want to read that? And now last but not least, for our summer releases, we have August. The very first release day that we have for August is the 5th. And the very first book that we have is The Love Club. And this one I think is going to be kind of more sentimental, which makes me a little nervous, but I also think it's going to be really cute. Also, the cover of this one is so cool. This one is basically about a group of friends that have named themselves The Love Club. And the love part is basically the first initial of each of their names. How adorable is that? This one says it's an immersive novel following 3 estranged high schoolers who are pulled into a video game to pursue the disappearance of their friend. So basically one of them disappears. I think it's the E of love. Soon afterward, Liberty and Vera, L and V, moved away, leaving O alone with her grief, abandonment, and confusion, until Liberty and Vera returned for their senior year of high school. Though the Love Club's 3 remaining members once bonded as outcasts and gamers, they can't pick up the pieces of their friendship. But the girls are drawn back to their old clubhouse, where they discover, loaded for them to play, a new game created by none other than the missing L, aka E. One click and Liberty, Vera, and O are ported into Morning Glory, an ever-evolving botanical fantasy coated with their lived experiences, complicated history, and repressed insecurities. Unbeknownst to the others, O can't remember the events surrounding L's disappearance, but within the game, L has sent O a cryptic hint about Morning Glory's real nature. While Liberty and Vera defeat increasingly sinister bosses, O grapples with the secret knowledge that her deepest wish to reunite with L might just come true. But as the girls progress through Morning Glory, O begins to wonder how well she actually knew any of her former best friends, and if she's ready to confront the hard truths and dangerous revelations about L and her returning memories. This one definitely sounds different from anything else I've ever read. Very intrigued. The next book on our list is our nonfiction for the video. I feel like I always have at least one to kind of like throw into the mix, and this one is Are You Mad at Me? How to Stop Focusing on What Others Think and Start Living for You. This is basically a book about how to stop being a people pleaser, and it does say that it gives you like an actionable plan for healing. I am a giant people pleaser, and I feel like I am getting to that point in my life where I actively like know that I do it and want to stop, but I don't know how. So I'm really hoping that this book can help me out. And then our next book is The Dead Husband's Cookbook. When infamous chef, restaurateur, and television personality Maria Capello's husband died, the media circus was intense and quick to cast the blame. Whispers claimed Maria murdered her husband to build her culinary empire on his bones, and that there was an all too grisly reason his body was never recovered. Yet, for the past few decades, the Capello family maintained their stony silence until now. And then the rest of the synopsis kind of talks about Thea Woods, who was chosen to work with Maria on a memoir, which is giving very like 7.5 Husbands of Emily Hugo. I just said Emily again. If you missed my last video, I called Jennifer L. Armentrout, who's an author, Emily for some reason. Like, I really don't know where that name came from. Who is Emily? And why is she stuck in my head? It should be the job of a lifetime, but something's not quite right with the close-knit clan, and Damien Capello isn't the only one to go mysteriously missing over the years. As the true story of Maria's past unfolds and the stench of rot hidden behind the kind coastal grandmother's veneer, Thea finds herself trapped and desperately afraid, because there are reasons why Damien's body was never found, and why, in over 30 years, Maria Capello has never revealed the secret ingredient in her most famous recipe. This one sounds very twisted, kind of gross, but I'm intrigued. The next book on the list is one that I'm super excited for, and I didn't even know it was going to be a thing until like a month ago, but this is Cowboy Casual by Holly Renee. I read a whole series from this author. It was a spicy like dark fantasy series that I absolutely loved, but this series is I think her first cowboy romance, and I am so excited for this. I've never even read the synopsis for this one, and I'm not going to, because all I need to know is that it's from Holly Renee, it's a cowboy romance. I'm so stoked. I cannot wait for this book. The next book on our list is another one that I'm very highly anticipating, and it's another one that I'm not gonna say the synopsis for because it's the 4th book in a series, The Fallen and the Kiss of Dusk. This is from the Crowns of Nyaxia series. I absolutely was obsessed with the first 2 books in this series. The way that this series is structured is it's basically like a larger series consisting of duologies. So the first 2 books were kind of like one couple and their story, and then the 3rd and 4th book are going to be their own kind of like story, and then so on and so forth. I imagine that they're all going to kind of like connect together, but with that kind of duology structure, I've just been waiting for this 4th book to come out before I start the 3rd one. Literally the first 2 books in this series were some of my favorite reads just of my entire year last year, so I'm very excited to kind of continue on with that. Hi guys, it's a couple of days after the last clip that you saw. Some construction started across the street, so it got too loud. I couldn't continue on. But we're here today to finish off our summer releases list. And the first one that we have is Girls of the Dark Divine. And the title is definitely what attracted me to this one. But this one also has a really cool kind of concept. It's basically about some girls in a ballet. A magical curse binds the girls to the show's mastermind, Malcolm, whose invisible strings wield their limbs as if they're marionettes. And the commands don't stop when the curtains come down. Each dancer Dancer is destined to turn to dust once the curse consumes her. So that I feel like is a really fun kind of concept, and also, funny enough, it actually reminds me of one of the books in the Caraval trilogy, specifically the third book. If you've read that book, you know what I'm talking about. I don't want to go into detail about it because I don't want to like spoil anything from that book. And there's actually a quote before the synopsis that mentions that this book is perfect for fans of Stephanie Garber, who is the author of the Caraval trilogy. So I thought that was kind of interesting, and as a whole, I do feel like that concept sounds fun. And then the last release that we have for August 5th is House of the Beast, and I don't honestly remember at all what this is about. It says it's as darkly whimsical as the most beloved fairy tales and soaked in gothic atmosphere. Ooh, okay. The gorgeous and evocative illustrations bring to life an unforgettable, lush, and hypnotically romantic story. The second part of that is exactly why I wanted to get this book. It does have illustrations in it because apparently the author of this book is typically an author of graphic novels. So although this is like a regular novel, it has illustrations in it as well. You all know I am a sucker for an illustration in a book. So this one says, born out of wedlock and shunned by society, Alma learned to make her peace with solitude, so long as she had her mother by her side. When her mother becomes gravely ill, Alma discovers a clue about her estranged father and writes a message begging for help. Little does she know that she is a bastard of House Avera, one of the 4 noble families that serves the gods and are imbued with their powers, and her father is a vessel of the dread beast, the most frightening god of all, a harbinger of death. In a desperate exchange for her mother's medicine, Alma agrees to sacrifice her left arm to the beast in a ceremony that will bind her forever to the house and its deity. That is one of the most random things I think I've ever read in a synopsis. Regardless, her mother soon passes, leaving Alma trapped inside the Avera's grand estate, despised by her relatives and nothing but a pawn in her father's schemes. Now vengeance is the only thing that keeps Alma going. That and the strange connection she has with her god, a monster who is constantly by her side, an Ederict being taken the form of a beautiful prince with starlight hair that only she can see. He tells Alma that she has been chosen to bring a change upon their world, and with his help, Alma plots a perilous journey to destroy the house that stole everything from her. This definitely sounds like something I'm going to love, so very excited for that. Now let's move on to our next release day, which is the 12th, and we only have one book, and it's called Mess. And the cover of this one I thought was super, super cute. And kind of like briefing over the synopsis, this one is basically about a Los Angeles-based professional organizer, and she's someone that is like super rigid and super kind of judgmental. Although she is like an organizer for all these clients, she finds it like kind of exasperating, the fact that like all these people are so messy. But when she meets a new client that is the complete polar opposite of her, it kind of makes her self-reflect a little bit. And that's kind of really the only thing that I'm getting from this synopsis. But there's a quote at the top that says, Marie Kondo meets the real housewives in this charming and perspective story of a professional organizer to Hollywood's elite who learns to find love and acceptance amid the messiness of life. So I think this will be really cute, kind of like wholesome type of story. So looking forward to that. Second to last release day for August, and for this video in general, we have the 19th, and the very first one that we have is Hemlock and Silver by T. Kingfisher. I've only read one book from this author. I think it was Nettle and Bone, and I enjoyed it decently enough. It wasn't like my most favorite book. I think it was one of those things where like the hype kind of, it fell victim to the hype. I just heard so many super, super good things about it, and just like this author in general, and I was kind of underwhelmed, but I'm definitely open to like reading more from this author. So this one says it's a dark reimagining of Snow White, steeped in poison, intrigue, and treason of the most magical kind. I love a Disney fairy tale kind of retelling story, so I'm very excited about that. Healer Anya regularly drinks poison, not to die, but to save, seeking cures for those everyone else has given up on. But a summons from the king interrupts her quiet, herb-obsessed life. His daughter, Snow, is dying, and he hopes Anya's unorthodox methods can save her. Aided by a taciturn guard, I have no clue what that is, a narcissistic cat, and a passion for the scientific method, Anya rushes to treat Snow, but nothing seems to work. That is, until she finds a secret world hidden inside a magic mirror. This dark realm may hold the key to what is making Snow sick, or it might be the thing that kills them all. And then second to last for this entire video, and the last book that we have for the 19th release, we have Fallen Gods. This book in particular has been on just kind of like my 2025 releases book list for so long. So I am so excited that it's finally coming out. And obviously what attracted me to this book to begin with was the cover and the sprayed edges and things. And honestly, that's about all I can really say about this book because it barely has any sort of synopsis whatsoever, and the little bit that it does have is so vague. I'm gonna read it to you, but like, it really gives nothing. The tiny Norwegian town was meant to offer answers. Instead, Liv arrives to find a tale older than time. eerily familiar, filled with ancient secrets and perilous desire. And that is literally it. No information other than it has a cool cover and pretty sprayed edges, and it's about gods, which I do actually really like. Also, this is book 1 of what is going to be a duology, so there's that. And now, last but not least for this entire list, we have a new release day of August 26th, and the last book is The Book of Heartbreak, and this one has a really, really cool concept. So this one says, Sayre Silverbirch has already had her heart broken 3 times. A 5th heartbreak will stop her heart forever. Such is the nature of the curse she was born under, which forces her to live a life without letting anyone get too close. When her mother dies unexpectedly and her heart breaks for the 4th time, Sayre begins to urgently question the curse. Where did it come from? Why her? And rather than accept it, could there be a way to break it? Her questions lead her to Istanbul, where she meets Leon, a seer who helps her track down the mysteries of her mother's past. But Sayre's heart is a fragile thing, and their blossoming romance poses a great risk to her survival, especially when she discovers that her fate is in the hands of celestials beyond this earthly realm. So yeah, it's basically about a girl who is under a curse where her heart can't break more than 5 times. And that concept sounds so cool, so unique. I'm very excited. And with that, those are all of the books that are going to be released in June, July, and August. And per usual, if you guys have any books that you're excited for that are going to be released in those months that I missed, leave them in the comments down below. I feel like there's always a bunch that I end up missing, and also too, the closer you get to those months, more books are being announced and things, so I always miss a bunch, but these are kind of like the 30-ish ones that are most intriguing to me at the moment. And with that, that is everything that I have for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you have/have had the most amazing of days, and I will hopefully see you in my next one. Bye!